Hello. Welcome to the Rotten Horror Picture Show, the horror movie podcast, where we talk about movies off the Rotten Tomatoes 200 Best Horror Movies of All Time list. My name is Clay. With me is Amanda. Amanda, how are you doing?
I'm good. Where is my business card?
Where is my business card? Why do you have such a dorky ringtone?
Or, hurry everyone, run.
Yeah. These are all famous sayings in South Korea.
Yeah. Wouldn't it be kind of amazing if they were?
They
were all inside jokes and we were just ignorant and didn't know it.
Yes. It wouldn't surprise me. We are talking today about Train to Busan.
So get ready for us to ruin everyone's names.
Yes, get your tickets out.
Tickets, please.
Or you're getting thrown off at the next stop.
Escorted out.
By zombies. Escorted out. This is number 69. Nice. On our list with a 94% Rotten Tomato score. Had you seen this one before?
I had not. It had been on my list to watch for a very long time, and then my husband, who does not like horror movies, watched it without me.
Ah, yes. That tracks.
Why does that track?
Because I kind of feel like he's never going to listen to this, right?
I love you.
I feel like he's more into like Korean movies. Is that true?
No.
Okay. Well, I have no idea then.
I mean, he really liked Parasite. But I think he watched this before he saw Parasite.
I don't know.
So
I'm
it's
just
not even like Korea knows what they're doing. I'm gonna watch all of their.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm not.
I have no idea. Out of character for him.
Yeah.
Temporarily abducted by pod people. I don't know.
He likes Edgar Wright movies, right?
Yes.
Maybe.
Oh.
There's some connection there.
Yeah.
Because Edgar Wright liked this movie.
Should have just brought him over here with me. Could have grilled him live on air.
He should be the co-host.
Oh shit. I just lost my own job.
I had only seen, this is one that I had heard about for a long time. I have only seen this once before, and I saw it for the first time. I think it must have been 2020.
Oh, okay.
Excuse me. When it was on The Last Drive-In with Joe Bob Briggs.
Oh.
Yeah, I came to it late. I think I started it maybe like 20 minutes in. And then by the time it was over, I had to go back and watch it again because I was like, this is one of the best zombie movies I've ever seen.
Yeah.
But yeah, it comes very highly regarded. It is the 6th highest grossing domestic film in Korean history.
Oh, wow.
Yes. Most of the trivia on IMDb is just about how well it did monetarily in Korea and other countries.
Good. That's great. I mean, it's a great movie. I'm glad to hear that it got some success because sometimes we do these and it's like, wait, this movie is great. Why did no one go see it?
Yeah. Yeah. I actually don't know what the release was like in America. I probably could look it up, but I don't do any work for this show. So anyway, let's play the trailer, take a quick break, and then we will get into it.
이상한 사람이 하나 타고 있는 것 같은데.
팀장님, 여기 11호차 응급 환자 발생했습니다.
너 꼼짝으로 찾아냈어? 알려주세요. 아직까지 남의 안은 열려 있다니까. 우리 그냥 이것들 달고 부산으로 갑시다. 바로. 지금 몇 호칸? 전화 끝나면 들어가자.
Okay, Train to Busan. I just looked it up. It only made about $2.2 million in the United States and Canada. 15.8 in other territories for a total worldwide gross of 98.5 million.
Wow.
So it didn't do huge business in America or Canada.
But I mean, I am unsurprised.
Yeah, it's well,
We're bad at foreign films here. We only in the
Yeah.
last like 2 years have we started kind of going, oh wait, other places.
yeah, but I wonder if this had come out like 10 years earlier, if maybe it would have done better, because I feel like 2016 we're kind of on the tail end of the zombie thing.
Yeah, I feel like World War Z probably came out around then and was sort of a notorious high budget flop. Do you know what I mean? So like if people had just recently seen that and it wasn't very good.
Oh wow, World War Z was 3 years before this. Okay.
Oh wow.
That's
okay.
surprising.
Because I do feel like World War Z was kind of the death knell
Yeah.
movie-wise
Yeah.
of zombie movies. Like that one cost so much money, it had so many big names, and then it was not well received. And I feel like that's when the studios went, oh, okay, I get it. We've moved on from this.
Yeah, I don't think there's much let's put it this way. High budget zombie movie never really the right way to go.
Yeah.
Very rarely, I think, does that end up panning out.
Yeah.
But this one is Train to Busan from 2016. It was directed by Sang-ho Yeon. Hope I apologize in advance. Written by Jo-suk Park and Sang-ho Yeon. Starring Gong Yoo, Yu-mi Jung, Ma Dong-seok, the greatest child actor on the planet, Soo-an
Seriously.
Kim,
Oh my God.
and every contortionist in South Korea, probably. Amanda, what happens in Train to Busan?
A man, his estranged daughter, and other passengers become trapped on a speeding train during a zombie outbreak in South Korea.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah. Gotta love
Pretty
those.
much.
Yeah, gotta
Yeah.
love those summaries that are nice and to the point.
Yeah. I was trying to think, is it emblematic of the actual story? It's like, well, it gets a little more complicated than that, but honestly, not really.
Yeah.
Not much
yeah,
more
I mean,
complicated
that's
than
pretty
that.
much it. Yeah, there's not a lot of...
Yeah.
You get the gist. You know what the movie's about now.
Yeah.
Well, Clay, some things you'll find in this movie include a zombie deer.
You know, I noted that as well.
Yeah.
Because I feel like we very rarely see zombie animals.
Yeah.
I think your husband actually might have hit it on the head when he said why, which is they cost a lot of money, and you have to worry
Fair.
about making sure that animals aren't hurt.
Right. PETA doesn't come after you for it.
Yes, but it's always interesting with it because zombie animals. It also widens the circle so much.
Right.
Because
Because then
if-
it's like, all right, we're going to get zombie rats, zombie
Right,
pigeons,
right.
zombie mosquitoes.
And
like,
if those zombie animals work on the same mechanics as zombie people,
right.
they're going to be going after other animals.
Right.
Which means, like, even if we do figure out how to keep the zombie humans at bay,
We're all done for.
there's no food left.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's too complicated. But not in this movie. You just see one cool looking zombie deer and you move on.
Yeah, that never comes up again.
Yeah. It's kind of great, actually. The evils of capitalism.
Which is, I think, the running theme in a lot of Korean movies.
Yes.
Yep.
Yeah. Tied into that one is the stress and heartbreak of trying to buy a gift for a child.
I didn't appreciate this until our friends started having kids. And the first, 2 times that we went to our friend's son's birthday, we went to the store and we're like, oh, what should we get him?
Yeah.
Should get him this thing. Oh, I think this would be really cool. I think he would like this. And then
Yeah.
you get it, and, he opens it, and you're like, he's going to love this. And then he just throws it aside. And next time you come over, it's outside. It's clearly been there for like a month. It's been rained on, and you're like, oh yeah, he's 2.
Yeah. Yeah, he doesn't care about things yet. He
Yeah.
had more fun in the box than he did with the toy.
Yeah,
Yeah.
said friend also got some really interesting gifts for a child from like family members that even he was like, I don't know why they get. So his first son, I think when he was like 5, got from a family member a violin, like a small violin.
Whoa.
A child-sized violin.
Huh.
Not like a fake one, that like you hit buttons and it plays
Right,
like
no,
a
like
real
one.
violin. Yes.
Wow. Okay.
I don't think he ever played. I mean, maybe he did. I don't know.
Maybe he's a virtuoso now.
It's possible. And then later on, he sized up, but still like when he was like 10.
Yeah.
Actually, this was. What is he, like 12 now? So he's probably like 8 or 9.
Yeah.
He got a full-size guitar. and our friend was like, "Can you come over and show my son how to use this?" And I was like, "Yeah, when he's 15." Yeah. Call me in like 8 years.
Also, I will have to come over once a week, every week for the next 9 months.
Yeah, and I charge by the hour.
Well, you will also find big dad energy.
Yes, a
in
lot
this
of dad
movie.
energy.
A lot of dad energy.
Yeah.
Train bathrooms.
Yep, there's a lot of train There's very strategic train bathrooms.
Yes.
Very scary train bathrooms.
Making lots of good use of the train bathrooms.
Yes.
Literal waves of zombies.
Yeah, it was really cool.
Yeah.
Like I think you said when we were watching this feels like probably what World War Z wanted to be.
Yeah, I think so.
And
yeah, where they sort of have these swarming behaviors.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And there's one scene towards the end where like there is like a literal crashing wave on the train tracks of these zombies, which is really cool.
The human chain kind of move.
Yeah, yeah.
A convenient stash of leather straps and duct tape.
That was my favorite part of the movie.
Yeah, where it's just like, guess we're going to need these.
Yes. Like they found Dennis from It's Always Sunny's duffel bag.
And questionable parenting.
Yeah, yes.
Early on, yes.
I think it's probably
he gets better.
I think it's a class and cultural thing for that guy in some respects.
Sure.
But also, I mean, like, there's a zombie. He's doing the best he can.
Well, I mean, one of the other characters calls him out on
that's true.
that
yes.
he's probably not been a good dad.
Yeah, and he also does, when things starts breaking down, he does give his daughter the advice that in times like this, only think about yourself. Yeah. Which is kind of the theme of the movie, is why you should not do that.
Exactly.
Yes, but
yes.
Train to Busan. I think that zombie movies, people are so I was just listening to a podcast today about the 1979 Frank Langella version of Dracula.
Okay, cool.
Which I really enjoy. It's kind of a lesser known Dracula, but it's fun. I like it.
Yeah.
And I haven't watched it in a while, but they were talking about how this version of Dracula skips the entire first act where Jonathan Harker goes to Transylvania, and it opens with the Demeter showing up in England.
Yes. Okay.
Right? And they were talking about how it stinks because the Transylvania stuff is always the best part. It's the part everybody seems to like, but they've done the story so many times. It's kind of like, is it kind of old hat to do that to do that whole thing again? And I was thinking about that in reference to this, because I think with zombie movies, the more that there have been, you get familiar with the setup and how they work and stuff. I'm probably going to be calling back to Dracula movies a lot because I've been listening to this podcast, so it's been covering a lot of Dracula movies. But the Hammer Dracula movies, I always love because after the first one, everybody knows that vampires exist and they know how to deal with them.
Yeah, there's no like origin story exposition kind of stuff necessary every time.
Right.
Yeah.
And zombie movies, it's like, they die, people die, come back to life, and you shoot them in the head and stuff. So
right,
you can
and there's generally like two types of origins. Either this is some sort of supernatural, demonic, the heaven's full and the gates of hell are open kind of thing, or it's a disease.
Right.
Like a virus or a disease or some sort of mutation passed through saliva. Like that's essentially your two avenues into zombies.
Yeah. And I think one of the things that gets lost the more often that you do these things is that great opening bit that you can do where you have your protagonist going about his business and then ever so slightly the edges start falling off and closing in and you start seeing things happening in the periphery, which then
this movie does really well.
It's great. Yeah. There's three movies that I think do it really well. There's obviously the first Night of the Living Dead, fantastic.
Yeah.
I also actually really like, I think I've mentioned this before, Survival of the Dead, one of the later George Romero movies. Yeah. It's not a good movie, but the opening is pretty good in this regard. It's a small story to get things going, but I think it's pretty effective. And this one, I guess Rec does it pretty good, I think, as well.
Yeah. Yeah, that's sort of like everybody's just kind of trying to have a normal day.
Yeah.
And then you slowly start to notice, all right, that's weird. Okay, why are those people attacking each other in the...
Rec, I guess, they kind of take the all or nothing approach, if I remember, because it's like everything's kind of going normal. They're answering a routine fireman's call.
Yeah.
And then that body falls down through the stairwell, and then it all kind of goes to shit from there.
Yeah, that's true. It does. It escalates much more quickly.
Yes. But this is great. I mean, you get so much stuff at the beginning establishing the father and the daughter.
Yep.
Which is, it's not peripheral, because it's character work, but you're getting this character work as you start seeing, the pieces of the Jenga tower falling off.
One of the things that I noticed, I was kind of skimming through and rewatching like the first like half of it before we started to record. Mm-hmm. There's a moment in that opening sequence where you meet the dad, whose name is I think Suk-woo.
Sure.
I have the name. I literally made myself a character key in my notebook. My familiarity with Korean is non-existent. If these were Japanese names, I could probably sound most of them out pretty well. Mm-hmm. But with Korean, I am just hopelessly ignorant. So.
I'm gonna warn everybody now. It's gonna be the dad, the daughter, the big guy, the pregnant lady, the baseball guy.
Which sucks because I'm just sort of like, it shouldn't be this hard for us to... Anyway,
to be fair, that's how I talk about all characters.
I was going to say, see, I feel bad because it's out of character for me to not have like gotten the names down, and it makes me feel like a terrible, ignorant white person.
See,
so.
I've been laying the groundwork specifically for this.
You knew this moment was coming.
Yes.
You were ready.
Yes.
But so there's this moment in the opening kind of 20-ish minutes where he's gone home. And he's sort of kind of, getting comfortable, I guess. I don't really know. But he's talking to his mom, who's been watching the daughter all day. And as they're talking, he opens his closet and the camera is like inside the closet. Mm-hmm. And you see that on one side are all suit jackets that match. They're the exact same suit jacket, all of them, and they match the one he's wearing. Mm-hmm. And then on the other side is the same plain white button-down shirt.
Like Brundlefly.
I don't really know what you're talking
about. No, remember at the beginning of The Fly, he talks about how Albert Einstein wore the same thing.
Yeah. Exactly. But it's like it's this kind of great little like character moment, in my opinion, where it tells you a lot about him without him needing to go on and on about it, or anybody else needing to be like, well, I know you're such a perfectionist and all you care about is your job. Like, you're seeing it instead.
Yeah, and I think you get a lot of that stuff parsed out pretty well from those costumey details and the interactions with his daughter. And
when she says, I won't waste your time, I can just go on the train alone, I was like, that is devastating for a little girl like that to say to her own father.
Yeah, and just even the attitude of his mother when he gets there is she has this like morose attitude before you even really understand what's going on. Yeah. And she's kind of getting across that your family is fucked up. You need to focus on your family. What does she say? That
she makes a comment to him
about
marriage
shouldn't fall apart so easily without a fight or something.
You shouldn't give up on a marriage so easily. Yeah. And then he's talking about work, and he's like, well, it's a critical time. And she says about the daughter, well, it's a critical time for her too. Yeah. And I think that's really interesting because you definitely get the vibe very quickly that his mom seems like a very traditional mother. Mm-hmm. Like, she's home, she's taking care of the house for him, she's taking care of her granddaughter. Like, she doesn't seem like a, fuck the patriarchy ball busting type. She seems like much more of kind of like an old school, like, you take care of the men in your life, you take care of the home, you take care of the family. Mm-hmm. And so for her to be like kind of even slightly standing up to him on that kind of stuff is interesting.
Yeah. And speaking about the toy sequence,
the
toy sequence, the Wii sequence. I actually really love that detail because not only do they have him not know what to buy his daughter. He's bought her the same thing twice and doesn't even realize it.
Yeah.
Which is, again, that's another thing where it's like, this guy is not paying attention at all.
Yep. He's totally disconnected from her.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And yeah, you get a really great sense of their relationship. You get that, man, a lot of times you can see when they're laying the groundwork for the thing that's going to come up later in the movie. Mm-hmm. I defy anybody to watch this the first time and go, yeah, that song she sings for half a second on a video
is going to be really important later.
Yeah, and it's going to break your fucking heart when it finally wraps up.
Yeah.
But they lay that stuff out really well and really subtly.
Yep.
And, once they get onto the train, they do a really great job of introducing all these groups of people.
Yes.
While also giving you bits and pieces of things falling apart as the train gets going and stuff.
Yeah, I liked that, and I thought that was really well done. The way I kind of talked about it to Greg last night was, I think in that initial sequence, they lean on tropes to get you kind of immediately familiar with this cast of characters, but they don't let it just sink into cliche.
Yeah.
Which I think is a really difficult kind of fine line to walk, and they think they do it really well.
Yeah, and the thing that feels a little bit different about this than most zombie movies is I feel like most of the time you meet your cast of characters after shit has already hit the fan.
Yeah.
And so you are seeing how they relate to each other in the stressful situation.
Mm-hmm. Like no one's at their best anymore.
Right.
Everybody's like terrified and exhausted and has seen horrible things. And so everybody's kind of already traumatized and acting that way instead of this where it's just like there's a good chunk of this movie where people don't fully know what's going on, or even as they start to realize what's going on, they don't realize the extent of the situation, and it kind of allows them to just sort of start showing like the cracks around their personalities, like especially that CEO character who ends up kind of being the ultimate antagonist. Like I didn't realize last night that he's the man who talks to Suan, the daughter, outside of one of the restrooms.
Yes.
She's trying to get into the homeless man is hiding in one of the bathrooms, and she's there, and he says to her like, see, this is what happens if you don't study, you'll end up like him.
Right.
And she says to him like, my mom says people who say that are jerks or something, and he goes, well, it sounds like your mom flunked out of school.
Nice.
And pats her on the head and walks away.
Yeah.
I did not realize that was the character who later becomes like a huge problem in the group.
Yeah. And what it does also is it allows you to, first of all, it shows people being dicks to each other before anything bad happens.
Yeah.
But what it really does is it allows the characters room to change. And you actually get to see how these things affect people and how they change.
Yeah, it gives you like a baseline of like, this is what this person is kind of typically like.
Yeah, it sets everybody up to have some sort of arc based on who they are before, how they change, and who they end up being.
Yeah.
Some of them change quite a bit for the better. Some of them change for the worse. Some of them stay bad or stay good.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, but it is more satisfying that way. It's actually funny because we recorded our episode for a Patreon coverage of the second string Stephen King movies. And we did Maximum Overdrive.
Yes.
Which is another big ensemble group of survivors trying to make it out of some dangerous, violent situation. And this is like where Maximum Overdrive kind of failed with its big group cast.
Kind of failed?
Yeah, I was trying to soften the blow.
Yeah.
This one absolutely, in my opinion, succeeds. And you can see, like, having watched these two things so close together, you can really see the differences in, like, how you as the viewer are sort of introduced to these people. And like you said, they're given enough room that they have character arcs, which is so much more satisfying than just, like, this is a guy in a green shirt.
Yeah.
That's a girl in a black dress.
Well, I think part of it, too, is everybody has stuff to do. Like, they all have... It really goes to, when you get into, like, analyzing how movies are written and all this kind of crap, the thing that always comes up is, like, well, what does your character want?
Yeah.
And it took me a really long time to wrap my head around what that actually means.
Yeah.
And what it really means is that they just have an objective thing that
Yep.
they need to do,
Yep.
and then the story is about them trying to do that thing.
Yeah.
And this movie is really great at that
Mm-hmm.
because all of these characters have things that they need to do,
Mm-hmm.
which are external, just practical things, but also have internal, personal things that they're
Yeah.
trying to achieve as well. So when you have those two kind of the textual and the subtextual thing,
Right.
it always makes it that much more engaging.
Yeah, yeah, and I think the dad in this movie is a great example of that, where like he starts off just kind of like, all right, fine, I'm gonna get my daughter to Busan. Like that's what I want to do. I just want to get her there because that's what she wants for her birthday.
Mm-hmm.
But he's also like trying to reach out to her in a way, like
Yeah.
he's trying to be a better dad.
Yeah.
And then as the movie goes on, it becomes more about like protecting her, obviously, and like keeping her safe. But that same underlying drive of like the focus being on her and him trying to be a better father is really kind of the thing that ends up like motivating him more than anything.
Yeah, and he ultimately is trying to regain the thing that kind of like makes him. He's trying to remember why he loves his daughter, kind of, right?
Yeah, and why
Because-
he does all the things he does for her.
Yeah,
Like,
because she's kind of, she's kind of an afterthought at the beginning of the movie.
yeah, it very much seems like his attitude is like, why doesn't she understand that I have to do these things?
Yeah, and by the time you get to the end, the last thing that he pictures is the feeling that he had when she was the first time he held her in his arms and
Yeah.
stuff. And it's a great arc for that character that he probably could have survived. They probably could have let him live, but much like Maximum Overdrive,
Yeah.
15 people survive at the end of the movie. That's not true.
No.
Everybody does.
No, that's not
Almost.
true.
But yeah, it just gives you these nice little character arcs that have that don't feel forced. I don't think any of them
Yeah.
feel forced. I think they are executed really well.
Mm-hmm.
The relationships that start the movie,
Yeah.
seeing how those change and are tested as they have to start working together. Like
Yeah.
the father and the big guy.
Yeah. Gilgamesh.
From the Eternals. Seeing where they start, and then these two guys are the only ones who are being proactive, so they have to work together.
Yep.
But they think each other is kind of a dickhead.
Yep.
And that stuff is great. And it's just a really, and on top of that, you've got all of this sort of tongue-in-cheek government stuff, which is really great.
Yes. Yeah.
My favorite moment of that is when things are just starting to get really hairy, and so the news broadcast is still on.
Mm-hmm.
And the news broadcaster says, "Thanks to our government, many
Yes.
outbreaks are being contained," and it like immediately shows the outside of the train where people are just getting decimated.
Yeah. 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 Like people are getting literally eaten alive and like heads slammed against windows.
Mm-hmm.
There's blood everywhere. Yeah. There was I really liked that. There's a couple moments in this movie that sort of do that, where they sort of add in whatever like exposition or sort of like, here's the context of what's happening in the wider world.
Mm-hmm.
In those sort of like montagey moments where it's like people watching the TV because the broadcast is still on, or they're checking their phones because they still have internet access,
Phones work for a long time in this movie.
which kind of makes sense because
Yeah.
like, unless the zombies are specifically attacking infrastructure.
Well, so not to
It's-
get too dark here, but
Yeah.
one of the big details I remembered from the Boston Marathon bombing
yeah.
is we had a couple friends who were in the vicinity.
Yeah.
And one of the things that they all said was none of the phones worked because
Yeah.
everybody was trying to call at the same time.
Yeah, that's
so
true.
everything was just dead. And so they didn't, we had one friend who basically ran from downtown Boston to Charlestown.
Jesus.
And it wasn't until she got well outside that the phone started working again.
Yeah.
And so I just thought it was a little, who's to say? But
Right,
maybe,
right.
that was a long time ago. Maybe cell towers are better now. I don't know.
Yeah,
But-
and they're using the Wi-Fi that's probably built into the train. So as long
True,
as the
yeah.
train Wi-Fi is steady, then they're kind of they're not always in a big metropolitan center as the train moves from city to city. So maybe there's part of that. They're in like a less dense area, and everyone else is busy screaming and running away and getting eaten.
Yes. So, comparing this to Maximum Overdrive, I think is an interesting comparison because they are, and I think the big comparison to make that you were talking about where Maximum Overdrive fails and stuff is none of the characters in Maximum Overdrive have anything to do really. Where they end up just holed up in this gas station and they just kind of wait.
Right.
Whereas this, they all have things to do and whatnot. The other movie I wanted to actually compare it to, and I'm glad we watched it the last episode we did this, is Crawl.
Interesting.
Only because I think this is another example of really simple concept executed exceptionally well.
Yeah. I see what you're saying. Yeah, where it's like the premise seems almost too simple, but if you do it really well and your characters are compelling and yeah,
it's just, it's trying to get from point A to point C. Freudian slip. Trying to get from point A to point B during this zombie breakout, and you're on a train.
Zombie breakout sounds like
it's like a board game for 5-year-olds.
It does.
Yeah. But
it sounds downright cute.
But it's like what if there were zombies on a train? It's like that's the core concept, and they just wring everything they can get out of it.
Yeah.
Because you've got like the tension in this is exceptional as far as building tension, releasing tension. Like when they're trying to escape that one car and the homeless guy steps on the can.
Oh, yeah.
That's fantastic. There's so much of that stuff when they're crawling over, putting...
Up on the baggage racks.
Yeah, putting a lot of faith in those baggage racks to hold everybody up. But that stuff is really good.
Yeah.
And it's always... in zombie movies, the thing that always ends up being at the core of a lot of it is how inescapable these things are. It's like even when you think you've got a clear road ahead of you, you always end up running into more of them, and you just can't escape them. This movie is so good at like faking you out.
Yeah.
Where you kind of think that they've got a few minutes where they can get out, and then like you see them going down the stairs in the train station. Okay, I guess they're going to get to the army guys. You can see the army guys' boots. Oh, thank God. And then, oh, Jesus, they're all zombies. Oh, they're coming from the side.
Yeah. Yeah. It's very good at the sort of... The zombies are very much like 28 Days Later zombies.
Yeah.
With some changes, like which I like because
they're kind of half and half.
Yeah, I like that they are beatable.
Yes,
like I like that they're not so superhuman, so impossibly like you can't escape them. Like, because especially in the case of like a guy like I'm just gonna keep calling him Gilgamesh. He's a big, strong dude. Like, some of these zombies are like petite ladies. And the fact that, if one of them attacks him and he can just kind of whack her and she goes pretty far distance, I'm like, yeah, that's believable. He's a much bigger dude. Yeah. Whereas in some zombie movies, it would be like, no, she'd all of a sudden essentially be a ninja and be able to just like, resist any sort of like physical defense. And I liked that they did the thing where when it's dark, they can't see. Yeah. Because
that's a cool addition, yeah.
Yeah, because they do the creepy thing where it's like the cataracts over their eyes almost. And so, that would make sense then, that when it's dark, they don't have good night vision. And so I liked that they put that in there because it did give those great sequences when they're moving up through the train. And they have all these different sorts of like, how are we going to get around them? It makes it more believable that they don't all just get massacred right away.
Yeah. And I think one of the big differences, I'm going to say it's a cultural thing. I think the big difference between American zombie movies, see if you can guess where I'm going with this.
Okay.
What is the big difference between American zombie movies and this movie made in Korea?
Give me a hint. I don't know.
think about Dawn of the Dead,
Yeah.
who the main characters are, what the last act of Dawn of the Dead is like. Think about Day of the Dead, who the main characters are, what the last act of Day of the Dead is like. Think about...
Are you getting at the fact that everything ends in like American military might?
There's no guns. There's no guns in this movie.
Yeah.
And American zombie movies, such a big part of it is you gotta shoot those motherfuckers in the head, man. You know,
right. Everybody's got a cache of guns under their the passenger seat in their truck or something.
Yeah.
Whereas in somewhere like South Korea, it's just like no.
Yeah.
You can't even be like, well, like the cop has a gun or something. Even when they get to the soldiers, I'm sure the soldiers had guns, but it's like. They're all zombies now, and no one even thinks to say like, "Oh, we should sneak over and try and get their guns."
Right? Yeah. Nobody even stops to pick. They don't have. They don't have time.
Right.
Because they're just running for their lives.
Yeah.
And I think it is a really interesting distinction because like I think it forces you to. It makes it more scary.
Yeah.
Because
you can't just have a machine gun and be mowing down
that's part of
the zombies all at once.
The part of the fantasy of American zombie movies.
The very American fantasy of getting to shoot people with impunity.
Yes. Hey man, they're not people. They're dead. They're all messed up.
Don't talk about foreigners like that.
Whoa. But it takes away that aspect of it, and it really leans on,
keeps it from being a Zack Snyder movie.
Yeah, and it really leans on characters actually having to relate and work with each other.
Yeah, and being clever and coming up with things.
Because it can't just be like everybody's got a gun, try to get through this part of the car, shooting everybody without getting bit. You know, they actually have to work smarter, and it making. I was watching it last night thinking like they don't really get into any rules of how these zombies work. Like they don't at no point are they like, if you hit them in the head hard enough, they'll die.
Right.
Or anything like that.
Right. You have to sever the spinal column.
Yeah.
It's like, no,
you just do your best.
Right, right. Yeah. Hopefully get it away from you and then get away from it.
Right, which is honestly more realistic.
Right, because in a situation like that, you're not going to stop and say to each other, like, okay, well, what have you noticed about their morphology?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And even with the military thing you're talking about, that's usually a big part of these movies as well.
Right.
And that is, well, it's there at the end, but ultimately...
Yeah, but I think that makes the end more effective.
Oh, totally.
Of this, because you're not just seeing people run around with guns the whole time. So when there are people with guns, you're like, ooh, oh shit, okay. Like it makes sense that they've been able to defend their position because they have guns.
Yeah, and a lot of times these movies end up being like, or a lot of them end up being something like, well, once the military gets here, everything's going to be fine, and they take that off the board real quick.
Yes, yeah, which I appreciate. It was also funny for me, like, I have not been to Korea, but I have been to Japan. And so the bullet train was like very familiar to me. I spent a lot of time on bullet trains in Japan. And I was just like, yeah, I could imagine how terrifying this would be, because when you're on one of those, like, you know, there's nowhere to go and they're connecting these cities that like, there's nothing really in between them. Like you're going really far distances on that.
Yeah.
You know, it's not like the local trains around major metro areas where you're going like a couple miles maybe.
That was something I didn't quite have a grasp on when I was watching it, exactly how far they're going. Because I think early in the movie they say that the train to Busan is only an hour.
Yeah. Do they?
I could be wrong. I thought it was, maybe it was somebody like just saying casually that will be there in like an hour.
Yeah, I don't know. Well, I don't know if that was all the way to Busan or if that was like an earlier stop, because it seemed like there's a couple stops in between. But I mean, we took the train. Oh, God, it's been a few years, so I don't fully remember. But like from Tokyo to Kyoto, it's only like, I don't know, 2 hours, but it's like actually a very far distance. Like I think in a car it would be something like 6.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
So like you can be, if you're on a 4-hour bullet train ride, you can be really covering some ground.
Yeah. Yeah. That's interesting. Yeah, it does. It works really well in this because they go through. There's nothing for them to do.
Yeah.
On second watch this time, I did start thinking of like, is there not better ways they could have handled this? Like, could they not have stopped and like opened the one car and let them all out and then just started to go again? Because they're in the middle of nowhere.
But I guess how would you open the car and get them to come out without putting somebody at risk?
Well, yeah. I mean, you need someone to be bait, I guess.
Yeah.
But of all the other crap, they get one of those baseball guys. They're fast. Open the door.
They all end up
lead
dead.
them out and then run. Yeah, that's true.
They can't be that fast.
I really liked the baseball team.
Yeah. I keep calling them the baseball boys.
Yeah. I thought they added a really great texture to everything because everybody else is just sort of like normal people on a train to the city.
Yep.
Okay, one of them's pregnant, but most of them kind of just in like suits and stuff.
Sure.
And so having a team, a baseball team's worth of kids with,
jerseys and
hats and stuff.
jackets, yeah.
Yeah, it adds a nice flavor. And they also, they get killed real good.
Yeah. Yeah, and then it is like it sets up this great, like so much of this movie does, where it sets up this great moment where the one surviving baseball boy and his girlfriend, whose name is Jin-hee, which is like the only name I got pretty well on this one. Yeah. Jinny. When he has to sort of confront them in their zombie state, you can tell it's really emotionally hard for him.
There's so much crying in this movie.
I know, but it was so like,
yeah.
I don't know. It did add it adds an emotional layer. Like it adds like something where you can relate or feel sympathy for that character.
Oh, totally.
Because there are a lot of characters in this movie at first.
Oh yeah.
Like it's a pretty big cast, and so Suan, who's the little girl, she's easy to feel bad for. She's got a shitty dad, and she just wanted to go see her mom, and now zombies are killing everyone, and she's like a nice kid. She gives little old ladies her seat.
Right.
Like she's a sweet little girl who's
She's
trying
like
to be like
the greatest child ever conceived.
She was the best actor
Yes.
I think ever seen. I want to give her all the Oscars.
Yes.
Like she deserved everything. I'm not a crier, and she almost got me several times in this movie.
Yeah.
Without overplaying it, I would argue.
Yeah. Yeah.
But yeah, so like certain people are really easy to kind of immediately build some sympathy for, like her because she's a kid, the pregnant wife because she's a pregnant woman, the two sisters who are like older, they're like senior citizens.
The two sisters who one looks like she's in her 60s and the other one looks like a 25-year-old in a gray wig.
Yes.
I don't know how old that actress is, but she does not look like she's as old as she's supposed to be.
I have a feeling she probably wasn't 25, but would be very, very happy to hear you say so.
Call me.
What were you were asking, we were chatting about the baseball kid and the cheerleader, and you were just like, wait, are they supposed to be dating? Is that her boyfriend? What I'm asking is she single?
Yeah,
and I laughed so hard I missed what happened next in the movie.
I
really
think
funny.
that relationship is the one that I think is not quite as tight as the other ones are.
It isn't, but I find it weirdly charming.
Yeah, I think it's fine.
Like she shows up at the beginning when everything's peaceful, and all the other boys on the baseball team are like, oh, Jin-hee, like, oh, well, you're here. Will you sit next to me? And she's like, no, and just stomps over to this one boy who clearly is like trying to will himself to become furniture. And she sits down next to him and just says, when I tell you I like you, say thank you. And then all of the other boys start chanting, except her.
Cultural differences,
man. I loved it though. I was like, yeah. she's staked her claim. She's chosen you. You belong to her now.
I was wondering, based on the way he reacts when she comes into the train, if they have some sort of prior relationship where maybe they had some sort of interaction. And
I'm guessing part of it is that like again, I'm taking leaps here, so don't quote me on any of this, everyone. This is just between me and you and you and you.
All on the record.
But I get the feeling that she, for a teenage girl in Korea, she seems very forward.
Sure.
Like she seems very confident and very like comfortable in herself. He seems very shy.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so I think there's a little bit of that. Like, I think for him, there's a little bit of the embarrassment of, but you're the girl. Like, you can't just come up to me in front of all of my guy friends and declare that you like me. That's not how this is supposed to work.
I did think it was really interesting how when she walks into the train car and all the boys react like they're in a 50s musical or something.
A Goyle.
Yeah. I was like, this is really interesting because you've got a whole like team full of teenage boys essentially sort of like catcalling this girl, but she is not. She's the one that has the power in the situation.
Yeah.
Weirdly.
Yeah.
And it was, I was like, this seems like it's not, no, it's fine. I think it's fine because she's clearly the one in charge in this situation.
Exactly. And I think that's what makes him uncomfortable.
Yeah.
And why he's not able to just be like, okay, cool. Yeah, I think you're great.
Yes.
Like, let's date. Like,
Yes.
because he's like intimidated by her, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. That, I think that stuff works.
Yeah.
I don't think it is quite as tight as some of the other stuff, but I do like it.
Sure.
The other mentioned a little bit before, the biggest difference I think between this and American zombie movies is American zombie movies tend to be extremely stoic.
Yeah.
Where it's always like, my friend is turned into a monster.
Yeah.
One single tear as I have to shoot him in the face, you know?
Yeah. Well, I mean, and this is not an American zombie movie. I'm going to keep referencing 28 Days Later because it's one of my faves. But when, oh God, what is her name in 28
The
Days
girl?
Later? Yes.
As close as I can get. Alice or something?
No.
Ginny.
Anyway, when
Cara.
early on, when Cillian Murphy meets up with her and the dude she's traveling with.
Oh yeah, I thought
And-
you meant the younger girl.
No,
Yeah,
no.
okay.
The love interest.
Yes. Naomi Scott or something.
Moneypenny.
Moneypenny, yes.
When the dude that she's been partnered up with, kind of surviving the zombie apocalypse with for several weeks, gets bitten, there's that brutal scene where she just picks up the machete and fucking goes at him. She just wails at him and cuts pieces of him off until he's dead.
Yeah.
And she does it really unflinchingly. Like, she just immediately, no questions asked. She doesn't feel any sympathy, it seems. She just goes for it.
Yeah.
And you don't see any of that in this. Like,
Yeah.
not from the good guys.
Yeah,
I
think,
good guys are all much more emotional about any of this.
Yeah, I think this movie, I think 28 Days Later, they're living in it longer. And
Sure,
so they've
as the name would imply.
Right, yeah. Whereas this one, it's all really new and stuff. And
Yeah.
like in this one, the scene where they are, where the businessman convinces everybody that they need to be shunned because they might have been bitten.
Yeah.
That's all very reactionary, and nobody knows what's going on, so nobody knows what the truth is and stuff.
But he's like an authority figure because he's some bigwig like CEO, and he talks about it a bunch. He's like kind of does the like, do you know who I am?
Well, I think on top of that, more than that though, he's just the loudest voice. And as we've learned from real life, the loudest voice is usually the one people listen to for some reason.
Yeah, and he seems certain. Like he seems like he, like you were saying, one of the things this movie does well is that people have stuff to do, and he's a very cowardly and awful but proactive character.
Yes.
So he will say, we can't let them in. He makes the decision really fast. And I think in times of crisis, that's also appealing to people because it's like, you don't know what to do. You're scared and you don't have time to stop and think and kind of reason it all out. So if somebody who already is sort of in your mind, somebody who must be trustworthy. I mean, he's the CEO of some big company. He's a highly successful man. He must be smart or a good leader or something. So if he says we shouldn't let them in, then that's the right thing to do, and that's what we should do.
And what's so great about his character too is, I mean, he's such a shithead.
Yeah.
But the nice little, I don't want to call it a turn because it's there from the beginning, but it takes a little bit to really rise to the top.
Yeah.
Is that at first it seems like he is reacting the way he is in an attempt to preserve everyone. but everything that he does is only to preserve himself.
Yes.
Like, he does not give a shit about anybody else on that train.
No. Yeah, and it makes him a great villain because he's also like a very believable villain.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, you can totally imagine in an emergency situation like that. Because in a weird way, in this movie, the main character is sort of, he starts off in between Gilgamesh and the CEO.
Right.
Like,
yes.
on the moral
absolutely.
spectrum, he's sort of right in the middle. Like, he's not totally like an evil, callous, or cowardly guy, but he's definitely not like an altruistic good guy.
Right. Yep.
He's like, I'm going to protect myself and my daughter, and if I happen to help anybody else along the way, that's fine. If somebody else happens to get hurt along the way, that's fine too.
Mm-hmm.
I don't care. And so it's kind of interesting because you get to see like sort of what the bad version of his storyline could have been.
Yeah.
Like if he had been there without his daughter,
Yeah.
he probably would have gone more in that direction than in Gilgamesh's direction, where it was like, no, we're going to help people. We're going to go back and we're going to rescue people.
Yeah. And he does show attributes of both of those guys.
Yeah.
And it's because, like we said earlier, he says the thing about in times like this, you only care about yourself.
I mean, he shuts the door on Gilgamesh and his pregnant wife.
Yeah.
In the first sort of big zombie moment on the train, like he's very prepared to leave them out there to die.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And doesn't ever apologize for it.
Yeah. I am a big fan of the dramatic, let's call it a dramatic triad of characters.
Yeah.
Because I always think that it gives you a lot of options as far as how to have character drama, and especially if there's one person you're focusing on, having two people along for the ride really allows you to have one guy be the angel and one guy be the devil.
Yeah.
And your main character learns or changes in accordance to what these other guys are doing and how what he's learning from them and stuff like that. It's the Spock, Kirk, and Bones mentality. Where you get your core three guys who all kind of influence each other. But at the end of the day, it's Captain Kirk with Spock on one side, McCoy on the other side, but he's the one that has to make the decision. And you get these other two who can voice both sides of the opinion and stuff. I think that stuff works really well. And in this one, it works. It's a lot more subtle, but I think it works equally as well here because, you know, like you said, you've got the main character who is kind of in the middle of these two characters, and he, through the course of this movie, ends up kind of choosing which direction he's going to go in, and it's mostly because of his daughter.
Yeah, and it turns into kind of like a redemption arc for him.
Totally, yeah.
Like he redeems himself like as a person and as a father.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But speaking of what I was saying, the stoicness of the American movie. A lot of crying in this movie.
Yeah.
And that's not to say it's a complaint, because I think all of it is completely warranted and realistic.
Yeah, I was going to say I always am confused how there's not more crying in most zombie movies. Like the fact that everyone is so like, well, time to strap on my machete and pick up my gun and go out into the wasteland. Like, you know, we all fantasize that if it ever came down to it, we'd all be like a Fallout character.
Sure.
Where we would just like not only learn how to survive in the apocalypse, but actually thrive and become the main character of everything.
I would be dead so fast.
Oh my God. Are you kidding me?
So
I can't
fast.
sit outside in the sun for more than 20 minutes without needing to vomit.
We went on a river tubing expedition together.
And lazy river tubing. We are not talking rapids.
Yeah, we had to pull over halfway so Amanda could go home.
And send me home. Because I am too delicate for the world. The only apocalypse...
I'm not laughing at you, by the way.
You can laugh at me. It's fine. I accept it in this case. Absolutely. The only apocalypse I am surviving is the indoor kid apocalypse.
Yes.
Is like, are you trapped inside your house, but you still have all the food and electricity you need? I'm fine.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. No, I
30 days of night? Sign me up.
Right. Yeah. Yes, that would be. How come that's not the backstory of the main character of that? It's like, well, you know, I used to live in Arizona, but my skin was too delicate, so I moved up here, and now I'm a badass.
Yeah, that's my story.
Yeah.
That's the only apocalypse I thrive in. It's dark all the time.
Yeah. Oh, I mean, like, everybody wants to think they'd be an apocalyptic badass, but
Exactly, but everyone would be crying in the washroom on the bullet train.
Right,
Like,
yes.
we all would be.
The minute you can't use your phone to get a burrito, you would lose your fucking mind.
Somebody's been chasing you for 5 minutes and you're totally winded.
Yes.
And you're just crying as you run. Like, I can't keep running. I'm not good at this.
I get freaked out when people tailgate me when I drive. I can't imagine what it would be like.
Oh, do you give in to the pressure?
Sometimes, yeah.
I gleefully do not.
Yeah. I have a big problem with so if I'm looking for a place to park and there's somebody like right on my tail, I don't like trying to like parallel park.
Same.
Because it's
you never know what the other person's going to do behind you.
Yeah, and it turns into a whole I feel like an asshole and
No, in that case, sure. I was thinking more on the highway. If I'm on the highway and I know I'm going at a good clip and somebody is like right up my ass and I'm not in the far left lane, I'm like, have fun, dude.
Yeah, as long as I'm not in the fast lane.
Yeah.
I generally don't really. Yeah.
As long as you're not in the bullet train lane.
Right. Yeah. But yeah, everybody in this movie I think reacts accordingly. I think the most stoic person is probably Gilgamesh, and even he has his moments.
Yeah.
I don't think he ever fully like really breaks down, but you need one guy to hold it together, I guess.
Yeah, and I think that fits. Yeah, it's interesting because when you were talking about everybody having character arcs, he kind of does not.
Yeah.
Like the only part of his character arc is he sort of comes to accept the dad as not a total shitheel. Mm-hmm. Because the dad over the course of the movie has proved himself to not be a totally terrible person.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think you could argue that when things start, he is only concerned about his wife, but unlike the main character, he very quickly realizes, all right, I need to help everybody else here too. But it's a quick turn. It's not really much.
I was gonna say, and he was at the very start. He's only concerned with his wife the same way any of us would be only concerned with the person we're traveling with on a normal day.
Right.
Because that's kind of how it starts. It's like his wife is pregnant and she's in the bathroom and he's like standing outside, like tapping on the door, being like, "Honey, baby, are you okay?" And she just bangs on the door next to his face.
He is really the fantasy character in this movie.
Yes.
Because like. He's the kind of guy where when the main character does something douchey, he'll turn to him and go, you're kind of a dick. Mm-hmm. And everybody wants to think they would do that, but most of the time in real life, you would just like look at your partner and like do like the eye thing and not say anything.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah, do the hand squeeze is definitely one Greg and I do, where it's just like, we can't look at each other because we know we'll set each other off, so just squeeze the other person's hand.
Yeah, the other thing about this movie is that it moves so fast.
Yeah.
Like, the intensity is so high.
This is like almost a full 2 hours, right?
Yeah, almost 2 hours.
I was shocked when I looked up last night and realized how long it was going, and it still hadn't quite ended yet. And I was like, I thought this was like a snappy 90 minutes.
Yeah.
And when I realized it had been almost 2 hours, I was like, oh, damn.
Yeah, it doesn't really feel that long.
No, it doesn't.
It moves pretty good.
Yeah.
And it is it is full of amazing set pieces. Yeah. It is what they would call in wrestling a spot fest, which is when you have a match where it's pretty much only like high flying big spots and stuff. Where it's like every single scene is like another cool set piece of zombies being crazy this way or busting through a window here or I do love flaming train.
Yeah, just coming down the tracks. I do love not to go too much back into it, but the setting of the bullet train I think it's so great because like it's so self-contained, but it's very long.
Yeah.
But you can only go in two directions.
Right.
Like so it limits your options. It's very linear, but those those trains are really long. This one they definitely mentioned like car number 14.
Yeah.
So if you've got to get from car 7 to car 14, that's a long way to go through a lot of zombies.
Yeah.
And then also having the glass doors in between each car and sort of the vestibule areas in between them. Mm-hmm. So you're separated from the danger, but not by much.
Right.
Which is like builds a lot of tension. And then I also love like all the times, like even when they're first pulling out of the station at the very beginning and the daughter's looking out the window and she just sees the blurry figure of somebody come running by the window and leap onto somebody who'd been standing on the platform and attack them.
Yeah.
But the train's moving too quick that you don't really see it. So they do a bunch of stuff like that with the train moving and something happening on one side of the window.
Yeah.
And you're like, oh, is that gonna come in here? Am I safe in here? Because it feels impermeable, like it feels secure normally, but all of a sudden, once there's like a real threat, you're like, oh, all that's between me and that thing is this pane of glass.
Yeah.
That's not a lot.
A lot of good window work in this.
Yes.
One of my favorites is towards the end when the conductor is trying to cut through the cars.
Yes.
And he goes in and he looks around and makes sure there's nobody in there, and then he closes the door and there's just a bloody handprint on the door. It's like, always got to check the door. The other thing that they don't do in this that they probably would have done in an American version of this, nobody even suggests, what if we climb on top of the train?
Oh, yeah. And part of that's because on a bullet train, you just can't.
Right.
It's going like 110 miles per hour.
Yeah.
You will, just fly off. And then the train tunnels in a lot of areas, at least in Japan, are kind of cut sort of perfectly for
Really
these
tight,
trains.
yeah.
There's not a lot of space.
Yeah.
You're not going to have a James Bond style fight where if you lay down, you get through the tunnel and you're fine.
They would have done it in a Hollywood movie.
Absolutely. Yeah. I'm going to go see that bullet train movie with Brad Pitt at some point, and I'm sure
I guarantee you they end
there's
up on
going
the
to
top
be
of
a
that
fight
train.
on top of a bullet train.
If there is not, I will eat my words, but I guarantee they're going to be on top of that
You're
train.
going to say you will eat your hat, and I was going to be like, which hat?
Did you ever hear about Werner Herzog made a bet with Errol Morris?
That he couldn't get a boat up and over a
No.
mountain in the Amazon?
No, Errol Morris. I can't remember the origin of this, but basically, Werner Herzog basically dared him to make a movie and said, if you make the movie, I will eat my shoe. And then Errol Morris made the movie.
Yeah.
And so there is a documentary out there called Werner Herzog Eats His Shoe.
Yes. Yeah.
Where it
my boss is a big Werner Herzog fan. I have heard of this.
It's pretty fun. It's it follows Werner Herzog as he prepares his shoe, which involves boiling it with like stew vegetables to make the leather like nice, and the shoe he chooses a leather shoe, so because theoretically it's easier to eat, and then it ends up with him eating the shoe.
What a work of art.
Yeah.
Nobody eats a shoe in this movie, though.
No. I saw a man say goodbye to his shoe once. Is there anything else you want to talk about before we round it out?
Yeah, I do kind of want to touch on how the zombie virus works a little bit, because there are these three interesting moments to me. The first one is when our protagonist is talking on the phone with his mom, and it's sort of like in the first third of the movie, when things are starting to go poorly. And he's talking to her on the phone, and she doesn't sound right. And he's like, "Why is it so loud there? Like, what's happening?" And she's kind of like hacking cough into the phone.
She's watching Cops.
She's doing something, probably getting chewed on by zombies. Yeah. And she starts talking to him, and she's kind of crying. And she sort of says like, "My baby," about him, and like, "I love you," and like, "Oh, like Suan, I love her so much, but all she wants is her mother." And then her voice kind of changes, and she's like, "That bitch."
Yeah.
And so there's that moment, and then when the CEO that everyone loves to hate, at the very end in the sort of climactic confrontation, when the train has been whittled down to just the engine, like they've found a new engine without actual train cars. The conductor is dead. Everyone else is dead. It's the protagonist, his daughter, and the pregnant lady. And then the CEO has been bitten. He's mostly zombified at this point. And he comes out of the cabin of the train engine, and he says something like, "Mister, can you help me? I'm scared. I need to get home to Busan. My address is..." And he's kind of talking like he's a little kid.
Yeah.
And so that happens. And then that's the big climactic fight where the protagonist gets bitten. And his last moments before he throws himself off the train, he sort of has this, as he's getting zombied, he has this flashback to the moment you mentioned it earlier, his daughter is born, the first time he gets to hold her. And I was curious about that. Like, is that like a...
That's how it works in reality.
When you become a zombie?
Yeah.
That's how it works. You get like one last arbitrary memory. It's just really interesting to me. Like, I wonder if there was sort of like a logic behind it where it's like, you know, is it that you kind of go back and have like one foundational memory that affects you before your brain shuts down? Like, I don't know. I just thought that was a really interesting choice in a movie that otherwise seems to very intentionally choose not to approach, but how do zombies work? Yeah.
I think I was reading on IMDb that there seems to be the way the zombies work seems to be very plot dependent.
Yeah,
where
a little bit, yeah.
Sometimes they can do stuff, other times they can't.
Sometimes they're contortionists. Sometimes they're just a little shambling.
Honestly, in this movie, does not matter.
Yeah.
But yeah, it is really interesting because it does. I do think there is something really fun to be explored about that idea of what is that last minute before, if you have the luxury as someone who's been bit by a zombie to have a quiet moment where before you can what is that last moment like?
Right.
That is pretty interesting as a concept.
Yeah, it is.
I don't know if it needs to be makes me really suspect of the mom at that point, because like if her last moment was like your kid's a bitch.
No.
Or the stepmother,
I think it's
ex-wife is a bitch.
Yeah.
I think it's interesting to think about, like, all right, well, as this thing is happening, how is it affecting or how is it corrupting the thoughts in your head?
Right. Is it just like pathways in your brain dying off and the last ones left are sort of the last images or emotions you get?
Yeah. I really liked the death of the turning of the CEO guy.
Yeah.
Because he has this moment that you're talking about where his eyes have glazed over. You can tell he's almost there.
Yep.
And he kind of turns back into a kid. And then he has this moment where it just like he shuts down and then he comes back. Like you see him, the actual turnover.
Right. Like almost like a switch has been flipped.
Yeah.
And I thought that was really interesting. And I thought kind of giving him that moment where he is sort of reverted to this scared little boy is an interesting moment of sympathy for a character who has been otherwise wall to wall totally loathsome the whole movie.
Yeah.
And to have that be sort of his last human moment of like that he's kind of just a scared little kid inside is like an interesting. I think it makes him a more complex character. It turns him from just a flat, like, oh, he's just a bad person who does bad things to people because he doesn't care.
Oh, totally, yeah.
Into more of a pathetic character who's like, he's too cowardly to do anything else. So that's what he does.
Yeah.
So, I don't know. I liked that.
Yeah. And not only is there a lot of crying in this movie, but it will probably make you cry.
Yeah.
And not only do they get you hard with the death of the father, you think that's going to be it.
Yeah.
And then they get you again at the very end when the girl starts singing the song in the tunnel. And that's the killer.
Yeah.
That's the one where you are defenseless.
Well, because at that point, it's just Suan and the pregnant woman.
Mm-hmm.
They're totally alone. The train has had to be stopped. There's like fire and dead bodies around, and they have to walk into a train tunnel.
Right.
And it's just like there's this one shot that I thought the movie was going to end on where it's just the two of them like fading into the darkness of the tunnel. And I was like, if that's how this movie ends, I'm going to fucking scream that they just walk into the darkness alone together and you never know. But that's not how it ends. As they're walking through, there are soldiers on the other side that have sniper rifles that are trained on the tunnel. And then they're gonna shoot them until they hear her singing, and she's singing the song from the beginning, and she's crying while she does it, and she's the best actor in the world, so it's like extremely believable little girl crying. It's absolutely heartbreaking. She's like clinging to the pregnant woman, and the pregnant woman's like having some physical pain.
That's the one thing I couldn't remember about this is I was like, pregnant lady in a movie, she's got to have that baby at some point, right? No, she doesn't.
Which I love that she doesn't.
Yeah, I thought as they were walking and she starts like cramping up, I thought, oh, maybe she's going to, but she doesn't look like she's pregnant enough to be going to labor.
But even if she is, they don't show it.
That's true.
It's sort of like, we're not going to get into that.
Yeah. The part that stood out to me about the ending this time is when, they cut over to the soldiers and the one guy calls it in and he says, we got 2 bogeys coming through the tunnel. Looks like it's a girl and a woman. And the commander goes back, kill them. And the guy shoots the other guy and look like, what?
Yeah. Because that's the closest point to entering the American zombie movie that we get this whole time, where it's like a bunch of macho guys in intense camo with guns just being told, like, yeah, fire them up, kill them all. And it's like, wait, really?
Yeah, like, I mean, even I was thinking, like, I mean, just wait till they come out of the tunnel. It's not
right.
You're far enough away that and there's shit around, and there's only 2 of them.
Yeah, yeah.
I mean, I guess thinking that way is how outbreaks happen, I suppose.
And
but
you're how we all die, Clay.
Yeah, but that's the end of the movie. I think this is like top 10 best zombie movies. I think this is fantastic.
Yeah.
It's so different, but it has all the recognizable stuff in there, and it has more. I'm going to go out on a limb, and I've seen a lot of zombie movies at this point, and say that this probably has the best character work in a zombie movie. Second only, I would say second only to Night of the Living Dead.
Yeah,
I would argue that it might be better in that regard because you've got A+ actors in this movie, and Night of the Living Dead is a lot of like amateur stuff. What I hate saying that, but it's
and you've had more time to sort of refine like how these movies work.
Yeah,
and like what you're trying to say with them.
Yeah,
like by this point versus when Night of the Living Dead came out, and it was like a very different subgenre.
But it's got all the hallmarks of that, even down to the political satire stuff.
Oh yeah,
and the class issues, and it's just really, really well done.
Yeah.
What was your takeaway generally? Seeing it for the first time.
I really loved it.
Yeah.
I thought. I mean, I know we keep praising kind of the character work in it, but I really do think it was very, very strong. Mm-hmm. I think it's violent and gory enough.
I was thinking about that too, because it's like it's violent and gory, but again, not in the way these movies usually are.
Exactly. There's no like, well, we've set some booby traps and there's going to be zombies who get their lower half blown off and then crawl with their intestines out through the dirt to try and get you.
And at the same time, there's no moment where, you get a close-up of someone getting their neck ripped open or something,
Yeah. It's more realistic where it's sort of like, you're just being bitten by human teeth.
Right, yes.
Like, there's only so much damage they can do if they, like, catch you on the arm. It's not going to, like, tear away a huge chunk of your arm or something.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, I thought this was a really great movie. I think it does a great job of like taking the basic hallmarks of what we've come to expect from zombie movies, but like doing something a little different with it.
Yeah.
I do wish I knew a little bit more about like Korean culture and sort of like modern Korea to be able to see a little bit more thoroughly kind of the social commentary and the, like you were saying, the class commentary. Like, I think I get the gist of it. I'm pretty sure I can recognize they're an industrialized capitalist, like, organized nation. So it's not that different from the same sorts of concerns that an American zombie movie might try to tackle. But I do think there are like interpersonal like relationships and the way people treat one another. That's much more like, would kind of add more depth and context if you knew more about like Korean culture. So I do wish I had like a little less of a blind spot there.
Yeah. I think American zombie movies have kind of lost the nuance that was created by George Romero. Yeah. And it like the social commentary aspect ends up turning into like, man, the military, right?
Yeah.
Or it's crazy. Look at them. They're all in a mall, just like,
you know what?
Shoppers.
Do you know what people should do? people should be nicer to each other.
Yeah, or you've got the other one that's like the military guy who's like, I wish I could just fucking kill everybody. And it's like, whoa, well, I see who that's supposed to be. You
right.
I see the analog there.
Yeah.
But I think that's kind of lazy at this point.
Yeah.
And this really does have great I hate saying social commentary. It sounds so hacky to say that, but it deals with
there's like real themes. There's like real substantive like explorations of like relationships between different types of people and and like sort of all of it sounds so hacky to say that it's just you guys get the point.
It's nice to see a zombie movie where the difference between the characters isn't just like that guy's got the big gun, this guy's a nerd.
Yeah.
This one's a woman with a cool haircut. You know?
Right. And I do like how this movie has a lot to do with fatherhood. With like being a good male figure in the world and to others. Like you kind of get the full spectrum of like the different types of men that you could be if you were a man, and like it sort of shows like what an impact being a good dad can be like.
Right.
And I find that really interesting. I find that like much more interesting than just like, if you don't have a gun, you're not going to make it.
Yeah. All prospective fathers should watch this movie before their child is born.
Kind of.
Yeah, I think that's pretty much it. There was a sequel made.
I did hear that recently. Yeah.
Yep. Not as well received.
I read something that was like, it's essentially the Fast and the Furious and zombies.
Yes, I read that as well. Yeah. Yeah, that probably doesn't need a sequel. Oh, do you really care? I didn't really care about the guy finding out that his company was involved with the outbreak. I wasn't even really totally tracking what the deal was, but it sounded like his company put a bunch of money into the lab that this started in or something.
I think that was what was kind of being pointed to. They say that he's a fund manager, which makes me think it's, like you work for a big investment firm and you're putting your money into different companies, and that they have a lot of biotech clients or portfolios or whatever. I don't work in finance. But yeah, I found that like superfluous as well.
I think if I had to take a swing at it, probably what we're supposed to get from that is like his shrewd capitalistic business dealings. Yeah. Something he did
caused the end of the world.
Yeah, like, it's when you find out that the monster was born out of an orphanage that you cut funding for, so that kind of thing.
Yeah, just your standard Batman.
Yeah, standard Batman guy.
Yeah.
I would say it was pretty superfluous. Didn't really need it.
Because I don't think he needed it to have some sort of like epiphany about like, shit, I need to become a better person. I think like, trying to protect his daughter and realizing that other people were going to help him and that he should help them was like the epiphany that he needed. He didn't need all the business stuff around it as well.
Yeah, I would agree.
Yeah.
This is number 69. Nice. On our list. Do you think this is too high, too low? I'm going to assume you would keep it on the list.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I would keep it on the list, and I feel pretty good about its position.
Yeah.
I might bump it a little closer to 50.
Okay, all right.
But I don't feel, just because I think it is a really good zombie movie.
Oh, yeah.
Like,
yeah.
I don't think there are many zombie movies I would put over this one at this point.
Yes. I think the ones you'd put over this would be more based on legacy than quality.
Right, right.
Because, like, is this a more well-crafted movie than Day of the Dead?
Yeah.
Probably yes.
Yeah, I would think so, yeah.
But does Day of the Dead maybe end up going higher just because it's the third Romero movie? Maybe,
yeah.
Even Dawn of the Dead, I think Dawn of the Dead is a masterpiece.
Yeah.
But, like, I would say this is, in the ballpark.
Right, exactly, yeah.
I think they're saying different things and they have different approaches, obviously, but, like...
Yeah. And I do think it's interesting to see, like, the take on this genre from another culture.
Yes.
Like, I find that
Yes.
really fascinating. I find, like, seeing, like, what would a Korean director think was important to highlight? Like, what themes would, when they think of zombies, what themes does that allow them to explore?
Mm-hmm.
And in what ways do they do it differently than American movies or European movies? Like, I find that really fascinating.
Yeah, I wish maybe somebody somewhere had this conversation with George Romero. One can only hope. But I would love to hear his thoughts on the genre. And I don't mean like the DVD extra thoughts where he's like, we didn't know what we were making. We were just a bunch of kids trying to make a movie for $8. Like, no, I don't want that
That's
shit.
a pretty good impression.
I would like to hear him talk about, like, you essentially created this genre.
Yeah.
I'm sure he would say, no, I didn't, but he did.
Right.
All for all intents and purposes, he created this genre. And it has turned into such a ubiquitous pocket of horror.
Yeah.
That I would be really interested to see or hear what his thoughts are about how people have taken it and ran with it, and how it does apply to other cultures and stuff.
And, like, what surprises him about zombie movies now? Like, what directions have other people taken it in that have been unexpected to him? What new kind of areas that people have started to explore are exciting? Like,
maybe he is the kind of person, or was the kind of person who honestly didn't really think about that much. But I mean, as any creative person must have had a moment where they kind of, like, reflect on it a little bit.
Right. Like, I helped launch this into the mainstream in a really huge way.
Yeah.
What has the impact of that been?
Yeah. I think about that with John Carpenter too, because anytime people ask John Carpenter about shit, he always, like, gives a glib answer about, well, if
he's
they
like,
just
oh,
paid me
no,
more.
I don't know.
Yeah, would you come back and do this one? Yeah, if they paid me.
Yeah.
It's like, yeah, sure, yeah, obviously, but you must think about it from time to time. He seems like he's a bit of a bitter kind of guy when it comes to that stuff. But I would be interested to hear his thoughts. But yeah, I would love to have been able to talk to Romero about what his real thoughts on this genre are, because
time to bust out the spirit board.
Yeah, it's just so fascinating to me. I mean, we'll probably talk about this more when we get to. Have we done any of his movies yet?
No.
Have we not done?
No.
Did we do Night of the Living Dead?
No.
Wow. That's kind of surprising.
Yeah,
okay.
We've done, like, a couple zombie or zombie adjacent movies, but I don't think any of his.
Yeah. Huh. Well, we'll get there eventually. Yeah. Yeah, there's so many movies. He made a lot of bad movies.
I mean,
but there's
kind of like par for the course with horror movie directors.
Yeah.
You know,
yeah,
you've got your hits, you got your misses.
Yeah, I can't wait to talk about Martin. Have you ever seen Martin?
No, but we've talked about this before. Oh. Definitely on this podcast. Oh. I keep waiting for it to pop up.
So excited.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's neither here nor there. That's going to do it for Train to Busan. Thank you guys for listening. If you want to help support the show, head over to patreon.com/thepenskyfile, where if you join our Patreon, you can hear Amanda and I get into the second string of Stephen King this year. Each month we're doing one of the lesser known or the also ran Stephen King movies.
Get ready for lots of talk of murderous vehicles.
Yes. June was Christine. July was Maximum Overdrive.
Maximum.
August will be Sometimes They Come Back.
Yes.
And all leading up to the 1990 version of It in December to round it out.
Yeah.
And if you're into comic books, I have a comic book out right now. I co-wrote Batman the White Knight Presents the Red Hood with Sean Murphy. So if you're into Batman, pick one of those up. I'd be much obliged.
Buy it. Do it.
And so we have hit our next wild card slot.
Oh, shit.
And I am now waffling because
no.
I have so many that I want to do. And I had zeroed in on one, but then I remembered there's another one that I really wanted to do that would line up with our Patreon coverage.
Oh.
Are we going to get there? But I think we'll get there. I'll get another one before the year's over, I think. So I'm going to go with my original choice. We are going to do X.
Ooh.
Ty West's newest movie.
Yes, back to Ty West, finally.
We have done 3. This will be the 3rd Ty West movie.
Yeah, we've done zero Romero.
not including Your Next, which has him in it as an actor.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm surprised we've hit so many of his movies
We're
before.
just Ty West
and two
stands
of them
over here.
2 of them were wild cards. Like
Yes.
we chose to do this.
Yes, we love Ty West.
Apparently.
I didn't know we did, but
Yeah.
now it's obvious.
What's funny though is we love the ones that the other people don't love as much.
Yeah, I know.
Although X I think did get pretty good reviews and pretty critically well regarded.
Yeah.
I saw it in the theater. I loved it. I thought it was one where when I left, I was like, that was pretty good. And the more I thought about it, I was like, that was actually really, really good. So I'm looking forward to it. It's kind of been in the back of my head.
Yeah.
And I haven't really talked about it with anybody. So
I stole your Blu-ray and then have not watched it.
yeah. So I'm going to yell it into the void and make Amanda listen to me. So
Yeah, I'm here for it.
excellent. So thank you guys for listening. We'll be back next time with X.
Bye, everyone.